Perception. Perception is the process of being aware of and understanding the world. Our perceptions help form, reinforce, and challenge our ideas, values, and beliefs, which affects how we communicate and interact with others. Our perception is influenced by culture, media, fields of experience, and language.
The three elements of perception are selection, organization, and interpretation. These three elements make up the perception process, which is a vital part of communication. The first step is selection. This is when you choose something around you to focus on. It could be something you see, hear, smell, or any other kind of stimuli. What stimuli we choose to select depends on its salience, which is the degree to which something draws our attention in a specific context. How salient something is can depend on many factors, such as loudness or sounds, and brightness for visual stimuli, among many other factors. Your own needs and interests can also determine how salient a stimulus is to you, as well as how expected or unexpected something is. As an example, imagine you're driving down a road. There are many possible stimuli you can pick up on, from other cars, billboards, restaurant signs, trees, as well as the sounds of other cars honking or the music you're listening to. However, what you might end up selecting is this road sign due to its bright yellow color and the fact that drivers are trained to pay attention to these types of signs due to the useful information they contain. You may even focus on this item simply because it can tend to be an uncommon sign, and the unexpected nature of seeing it may draw your attention towards it. This leads to the second step, organization. Organization is how we sort sensory information into categories based on cognitive constructs. These cognitive constructs include prototypes, personal constructs, stereotypes, and scripts.
Oh my gosh, it's a fox. Foxes are so ghetto. I would never hang out with a fox. That's just me. Okay, class, when you think of the word dragon, what do you think? When I think of the word dragon, I think about royalty, because that's what my culture says. Anybody else? When I think of the word dragon, I think of scary monsters, because that's what my culture says. Should I ask for the bill? Are we gonna split the bill, or are you gonna pay for it?
Why? Because I'm a man? I have to pay for our meal because I'm a man?
There are 4 different types of constructs. We have role constructs. Hi, son.
Hi, Dad.
Interaction constructs. Hi, Mr. Fox.
Shut up! Nobody was talking to you.
He's rude. Psychological constructs. My hair looks so good today. I just feel beautiful.
Wow, she's so confident.
Physical constructs.
Wow, she was so tall.
The final step of the perception process is interpretation. Interpretation is when we assign meaning to the sensory information we have perceived. There are 2 levels of meaning: the content level, which is the literal meaning, and the relationship level, which expresses the relationship between communicators in a given situation. For our example, the content level would be you interpreting the sign as meaning that the road ahead will be winding, and as such, due to that, you would know that it would be best to slow down and drive carefully so that you don't get into an accident. And that is a basic breakdown of the elements of perception.
Now that we've finished our overview of perception and its elements, we'll move on to some more advanced concepts like perceptual bias, improving your social perceptions, positionality, and standpoint theory.
Perceptual bias occurs when built-in roadmaps of our mind lead us to incomplete or inaccurate expression. One example of perceptual bias in my personal experience would be how I thought my high school Spanish teacher was teaching the class incorrect Spanish. You see, my family's from Mexico, and I have friends from South America that speak Spanish. And when I heard my teacher speaking Spanish, I could see a huge difference in pronunciations. I did not know that my teacher was speaking Spanish native to Spain. I had thought it wasn't proper because I was used to hearing Spanish in a different way, but there was just a difference in dialect. It wasn't until I got older and educated myself that I realized there are many different dialects for many different languages, Spanish included. In coming to this conclusion, I altered my perceptual bias and improved my social perception. How can you improve your social perception? Well, let me give you a scenario. Two children are left at home to take care of themselves in a rural town, while their parents move to the city for work. The parents find a cheap place to stay in the city and live there away from their children for months, even years at a time, sending money to them when they can. Do you think this is acceptable? Common? Your answer is linked with your social perception. One way to improve our social perception is perception checking. Now, what is perception checking, you may ask? Well, it can be broken down into 4 parts. The first part is to describe. Describe the message or behaviors you noticed. In the example above, it could be that the children are left at home for months to years while their parents work in the city. The second part is to interpret. When interpreting what you have discovered, think of at least 2 different possible interpretations of the messages or behavior. Think of 2 possible interpretations for the example above. Why would the parents do this? What is the motive for the behavior? The third aspect is to clarify. Ask for clarification about the meaning of the messages or behavior. The piece of clarification I will provide is the region of the world the situation explained above describes, rural China. As a result of China's rural-urban division, millions of rural Chinese children grow up in the absence of one or both parents due to work migration. Work migration has become a common practice for those living in rural China. It is their way of life. The parents will leave children in communities that are self-supporting or with their grandparents who can no longer work. The final part is to refine. Based on the clarification of the meaning, refine your own meaning. Did you form a different opinion on the example after perception checking? Perception checking is the easiest way to improve social perceptions, but it takes practice. Try to use it in your day-to-day setting. Try not to assume before asking yourself questions, before clarifying the message or behavior you see.
Positionality and standpoint theory are 2 closely related concepts that work together to describe how our perceptions of things such as people, issues, and aspects of society may change and be affected by our unique background. Let's start with positionality. Positionality is a fact about you. It's where you stand in society in relation to other people based on your group memberships and associations. Imagine being in a room with others with an announcer who says, if you're white, step left. If you're black, step right. And then asks people to take steps based on things like their socioeconomic status, their marital status, and even their personality. Eventually, everyone will end up somewhere different in the room. Positionality is fluid, however, and can change based on whether or not people leave or stay in their groups. As you can see, you'll end up closer to some people than others, even though you'll be constantly shifting. This is your positionality. It's where you are in that room of society, a fact about you. That's where positionality stops. Standpoint theory, on the other hand, expands on positionality and adds meaning to it. It's the idea that your positionality affects your perceptions of the world around you, the people around you, and social issues, or even reality itself, and can even suggest that your positionality limits the things that you can and can't know. Standpoint theory often views positionality in terms of how much power one's positionality gives them. It originated in philosopher George Hegel's ideas of the master-slave relationship, who said that since the slave is oppressed and subjugated, he has a great interest in understanding both himself and his oppressors, whereas the oppressor has little or no interest in understanding the slave. Therefore, the slave's positionality makes him able to know more about the entire system. Karl Marx applied this idea to class perspectives and inequalities, and later in the 20th century, feminist thinkers adapted these ideas to the relative power of men and women in society. A good analogy for this theory is to think of society as a pyramid. Imagine you can only look up towards the top, where the most powerful members are, and you can't look back down. For each group membership that makes you more powerful, you step up. Since you can only look up, the further up the pyramid you go, the less you see and understand, but those nearer the bottom can see more of the entire pyramid and thus have a more complete understanding of society and its potential defects. For example, take the recent COVID pandemic. Many people lost their jobs or their livelihoods and therefore their positionality changed from more wealthy to less wealthy. Some standpoint theorists may say that they, now that they are in a less wealthy category, can see more of the entire society and be better prepared to perceive its defects than if they had remained in their previous position. Some people have challenged the notion of oppressed groups having more complete knowledge, saying that their positionality also limits their knowledge in some ways, but standpoint theory remains an important concept in research as a potential way to uncover or acknowledge bias. Overall, standpoint theory asserts that your position in society affects what you can and cannot know, and your perspective on society and issues is a result of your ever-changing positionality. We've defined perception, looked in detail at the elements of the perception process, and reviewed some extended concepts, as well as some ways that you can improve your perceptions. Understanding perception is crucial to developing your communication skills, which will enable you to be a more effective and engaged member of your personal communities, your society, and the world as a whole.